So we ran into a little bit of a problem. The new bracket that we ended up putting on here, this one's aluminum. And so this one ended up going on very harsh. We had to end up doing a 130 inch belt in order for it to barely slip over. Pretty tight as it is, but beyond that, the bracket's actually shifting pretty violently. Under load, after it starts to balance out at a normal RPM, then it just kind of balances on that. The tolerance between the belt is 0 because it's literally touching the bracket itself. So we're gonna go ahead and try a different one because we have another one over here. On this one, it's steel, so it's not aluminum, so it's not going to flex. And then the only reason I didn't do this one from the very beginning was because this guy right here is actually welded. Because it's welded, I actually have to cut this off in order for it to fit onto his chassis, mainly because down here it doesn't have like actual spacer that's required for that part to connect to. We're gonna go ahead and have to remove all this again and restart it and do the other bracket, and hopefully we get better results. I hope this thickness is a little bit different, otherwise we're gonna end up in the same predicament as far as it trying to space out the belt. But if we turn it on right now, it rubs, so it's just squealing. I'm not trying to damage this belt because apparently these things are $118 for a freaking belt, so we're not trying to damage this one. Let's go ahead and remove it and replace it with the other bracket. So quick side quest, we're gonna go ahead and check to make sure there's no leak in the air system. That I ended up doing this quite a while ago. It still has a small little leak in the tank, and we don't really know where it's coming from quite yet, but I just want to make sure it's not coming from the manifold, this is the Airlift Performance manifold. So everything runs to each individual bag here, and then we have one line that comes from the tank, which is number 5, which is this one right here. Check to make sure there's no leak from there, so that way we can move forward with putting the box and everything back together for the panels, etc. Panel has to go back in. This little C-pillar panel needs to go back together. All that can go back together while we clear this and move on to the next steps. We're just gonna go ahead and spray it here. Make sure there's no bubbles coming out. Go a little bit heavy on it, but we're looking for basically just any bubbles, which I don't see any.
Hey! Who blew this bubble?
Maybe that might be it. We have the same issue as the last one. That's shitty. So the last manifold that we ended up having had this exact same issue where the bubbles are coming literally right there from the manifold, and they had to warranty it. This is the second one we've had this issue from. It's actually coming from the solenoids inside the manifold. I think they're having a quality control issue over there at Airlift Performance, but this is not something we can control. It's out of our limitations. We might have to call them and see what they want to do. Now up in the front, we got both of the alternators mounted, the belt put on, and this belt was, by the way, 130 and 3/8 Leonard says, which was $118 retail. This truck or this SUV is supercharged, which means the bracket down here had to be modified because the mounting point for the pulley had to be mounted to that little part of the bolt. Because of that, we had to alter the bracket, which is why it didn't go on very smoothly. Otherwise, it would have just bolted on in place. We ended up interchanging that one. Now we have the other bracket here that was aluminum, and this one just didn't feel sturdy enough. So although we made the modifications, there's my modifications right there, it didn't help that it didn't support the alternator that much. So we had another one that was made out of steel. This one was aluminum, and I'm guessing because that's just cheaper aluminum, that's why I had a lot of slack in it. We ended up converting it to this one that's all steel, and you can tell that they welded some of the spacers on place so that way it doesn't move. Overall, it's just a better bracket, so we switched that once again. We got to do the big three. We're gonna end up running a ground wire from here, the other part of the engine bay over there, from the bottom of the chassis to the engine, and then we're gonna go ahead and upgrade the ground from the battery to the chassis, and then the Warpath has to get wired in the back, which is our lithium battery. We'll do that as we continue going from the front to the back. So we're gonna go ahead and start running some of our wires. I need to actually add some of our plates. So we have the distribution blocks for the alternators, and this allows us to put all of the additional zero gauge onto one terminal without stacking them. That's gonna make it look cleaner, and it's gonna help with distribution of it without breaking the bolt. I'm sure they make an extension for that too, so that's probably another alternative route, but we're gonna do it it this way. We have another one for this one because he wants to go ahead and do extended zero gauge for this one too. So we're gonna go ahead and put our zero gauge to here and our factory wire to here from the current distribution block. We're gonna go ahead and take care of that. And then afterwards, we're gonna work our big way back, which is gonna start tackling the bass knob. Leonard bought a bougie bass knob that's Bluetooth. It literally just takes power, and from there it takes the signal back from the amplifier. We'll go ahead and get that done next because we need to go ahead and modify where the mounting location of that's gonna be. And we have a panel that we're gonna add 2 gauges to there too. So let's go and get started on this. Time lapse starting now. Have a crimper here that's going to crimp our zero gauge. This one's hydraulic. I believe it does 7,000 pounds or some shit like that, 70 tons. We're gonna go ahead and crimp all the lugs into place, and then after we crimp them, then Leonard bought the heat shrink that we can go ahead and heat shrink everything to make it look pretty. This one's gonna replace one of the grounds that we're going from the battery to the chassis, which is the shorter one. There's like probably about 4 or 5 different grounds in the entire chassis as far as the battery ground. So there's quite a bit of them that you can replace. We're gonna do as many as possible with as much wire as we have. And then our next step is to go ahead and heat shrink that one. This is like the Costco size roll of heat shrink that Leonard bought here. I'm not referencing anything, I'm just showing you the size and length of girth of this thing. So we're gonna go ahead and cut off a piece here. We're doing the ground strap that comes from this little bolt right here from the factory to the main terminal. And that one's replacing this guy that I threw on the floor somewhere here. Here it is. All right.
Oh, the strap.
So this is the ground strap that we're replacing here from the battery. This one goes from the battery terminal lug to the ground right here on the chassis. So we're gonna replace this small one with the zero gauge. That's part of one of the big 3 that we're doing. So we're gonna do one from here to here, then we're gonna do one from the motor to the chassis, one from the alternator to here, and then we're gonna do a power wire coming from our factory wire from here to the power. Normally you would do your batteries as well, but we already have a zero gauge going to the back for our Warpath, so technically it's 4. That covers all of that. Let's just go ahead and I'm just gonna zip into it with a snap of the finger. So we're talking about how loud decibel reading is going to end up being on, or SPL rating is going to be on this car. And I've told Leonard I'm shooting for 160s to the high 60s. I don't know if it's going to be that high. I could be completely wrong. But Leonard says, what is your prediction, Leonard?
I said 150 to 155, so I say 154.
And you?
Same, about 150 to about 155.
But you know that yours hit 124, 120 something, yeah. And it's just one single 10 or 12. The other kicker system I did hit 128, and he's currently the record holder right now. Then we have another build that I'm going to be bringing in, and that one's probably going to do like 130-ish. So you think you're only going to hit 150? All right, let's see what happens.
It's a lot of pressure, but the pressure is all the way in the back, and the ports are facing that way.
We're in a box, so no matter what, this thing's gonna massively hit.
Crazy, yeah.
It's gonna be insane. You know what? You have the satellite system up there. You think that's gonna break the brackets?
Nah, them brackets are on there.
I've pretty much finished the wiring under the hood. The only thing I need to do is ground straps on the bottom by the engine bay. So we have our zero gauge ground going to the battery, and we have another one going from the chassis battery. Then we're gonna have another one from the engine to the chassis. Then we have our zero gauge going from the alternator going back, and then we have our distribution block, and then we have our distribution block for our standard alternator that's running all the components to the vehicle. Other than that, I have my wire running from the bottom right here going out to the very end of the vehicle, which is going to come up, and we are going to pull the wires into the bottom similar to where we have right here. I'm going to relocate my management from the airlift, and we're going to go ahead and put it onto the Warpath. Man, I couldn't even think about it. It's late right now. The Warpath battery is going to end up having the wires come for the engine management. So basically all the aftermarket accessories, I want to put it onto the aftermarket charging system. So we have a hole right here that we're going to end up covering with 2 gauges, We still have our brackets that we got to lay out. Leonard also purchased the SMD distribution block, which we're going to end up using. Next, we're going to end up loading up the subwoofers, and then we'll start building our amp rack, which is going to go behind the seat or behind the box. So we got quite a bit of work for that. That's going to be it for this episode. We've got quite a bit going on, so stick with us. I know there's quite a bit of delay in between the videos, but you got to give us a little bit of cushion because we're working in really opposite spectrums of time between me and Bryn. Bryn works during the day, so he does all the YouTube during the night for us. So be a little bit patient with us as far as the videos, but we're trying to do one every other day. Follow, subscribe, and make sure you hit that like button so we can get you more content. This is Randy signing out, Modified Garage. Have a good night, you guys.